So, I want to talk about being a chosen one. And I don't think that's anything to be arrogant about. I don't think it necessarily makes anyone special. I think what being a chosen one is really is anybody practicing their free will, which everybody has, to choose back, to choose to say yes, to choose to say, here am I. I think of the scripture, draw near to God and God will draw near to you. I think there's so much there, but I'm going to say, I think free will is necessary for love to be real. Meaning, the Most High, God, our Creator, I feel like created human beings for a purpose. And I feel like part of that purpose might be to be able to experience those relationships between us and God, us and spirit, right? And I once heard somebody say, love isn't love if there's no way out. Meaning, if you force somebody to love you, if you manipulate the energy in any way, skewing it, forcing somebody to love you, that's not really love. And our hearts don't desire that, and we'll never be content with that, right? And so free will is necessary, especially in relationships, to say, actually, I choose to love you. I choose to delight with you. I choose to be in presence with you. And I think, obviously, anybody can have that option in front of them at any given moment. But I also recognize that in my life, I've had the exquisite privilege of just always knowing God, knowing Spirit, and having a very intimate relationship, conversational relationship with God. And also having the added, I feel like, benefit, plus that I don't need to have definitive answers. I'm really comfortable with mystery. Sometimes I almost prefer it. I once heard somebody say, God doesn't have a name, because of all the controversy around religious traditions or truth of this or truth of that. And it's it's a distraction to keep us from getting to the real point of it all. And so I'm very comfortable in the fact that I feel like now in my life, in my 40s, in this beautiful relationship that I have with God, I feel like I know less than I ever have. And that's totally okay with me. I feel like I have more questions than I've ever had answers, for sure. There's very little that I can say for sure about God, about anything really. But one thing that I know as experiential truth for me is I am held, and there's a deep and beautiful withness that is always present with me. I'm divinely protected and provided for, and I feel favored, but not in a way where it's necessarily unique to me. I think just lingering in this beautiful energy that I call heart space, which is where I go to meet with God in my heart, I feel like that's just what happens as a result of lingering in that presence for extended periods of time, in that solitude. I don't even want to call it solitude, because I'm never alone. You know what I mean? you just can't see. You can't see, but it's that. And I think because my energy is in that presence so often, it just really, in energetic terms, it raises the vibration of my energy. And so it results in favorable things. And not always. Like, it doesn't mean that I've been unscathed in this life. I've experienced many difficult experiences and circumstances. For me in my life, it has been mostly relational type things and learning those lessons. And even that has been something that I really appreciate, because I feel like life wouldn't have afforded me those lessons in any other way. And it's been experiential gold for sure. And so I think anybody, literally anybody, can be a chosen one. I think of that movie, The Shack, and the character who portrayed, because it was like the Holy Trinity, and this character who portrayed God the Father, who was a Black woman, and I wish I knew her name. I actually love her. She was the main character in The Help, and a ton of other movies. Great actress. Anyways, she would talk about a specific person, a specific heart of a person, and she would be like, I'm especially fond of that person. And then she would talk about somebody else, and she would be like, I'm especially fond of that person. And like with her whole heart, she would just be like, this is my favorite person ever. And I feel like God has the capacity to actually love every single person completely as a favorite. And I think if you lean into that relationship, you'll find that there for you. And so I think favor is a very interesting way to describe it, because yes, and it's unlimited. It's not singular to one person. It doesn't mean that if one person experiences favor that there's less for other people to go around. I think we have to go inward and really find a still enough peace to sit in that silence, and sometimes the excruciating vulnerability of being seen so deeply, because who else could know you more deeply? Like, more than your inner thoughts, more than you know yourself. But it's a benevolent love. It's a benevolent invitation to sit there and be restored and be reminded of not just who you are, but who you were created to be. And that innate, immeasurable value and worth, to the point to where it's like the question of am I worthy is even like, what do you mean? Like, that question is erroneous to begin with, because what? What are you even talking about? And that's why I go back there to sit in that presence so often, because in this world, we're seduced to forget who we are, who we were created to be. I think we're all chosen ones if we so choose back, if we so choose to open our hearts and let truth itself speak into us. I think it's what our deepest longing is for every individual heart. And I think it's why we're so medicated and depressed and anxious and overstimulated and overwhelmed, because we try so hard to find fulfillment and contentment in anything outside ourselves. God forbid we stand still for a second and let truth remind us of who we are. Let truth unbind us from the lies and the shame and the wounds and the trauma that occurred to us. No, actually, let God come and sit with you. And tell you all about yourself. tell you how when you were young and you experienced this hard thing and that hard thing, how you never deserved that, how you actually deserved to be loved and held and cherished. And I'm sorry that that happened to you. And it's not easy to overcome things like that we've been living with within us for decades. And we've built entire personalities and systems and defense mechanisms and all sorts of things to protect ourselves from ever having to experience that again, or subconsciously keep us in that state and identity because we agreed to the lie. We made an agreement with the lie of shame, of inadequacy, of who do you think you are, of this is the only thing you deserve, of all that bullshit. And it's just not true. And for some reason, grace, inexplicable grace in my life, I can say at least, of just always being aware of that presence and that love of God inside of me. And I don't care. I used to be Christian and I'm not anymore. And I don't care what form or shape or name this dynamic between me and God take. That's not what matters. What matters is my heart and that presence and that spirit. And so I'm not attached to a name, a dogma, a tradition, a religion, because I've seen how much more that has stood as an obstacle and a distraction and a deviation from truth and actual relationship and love with God. I think, especially if you're still here, I think you're definitely one of God's favorite. I think God is especially fond of you in a really beautiful and unique way. I know as a mother, I have 3 daughters and they're all so different. And I realized at one point that, oh my God, like I love them so differently, so uniquely, but yet equally. But it's so different, like you can't even compare them. And there's no need to. It's just such a beautiful, unique experience with each one of them. And I have the capacity to love them each in their own way. And it's such a beautiful privilege in and of itself. I think to be a chosen one is simply just to choose to open your heart to truth, to open your heart to love and the one who created you with love, you know. I don't think we're here by some scientific accident. I don't think our souls and our hearts and our spirits were created by default of randomness. I think my interpretation and experience of that relationship has been way far too intimate and deep and personal to ever consider the possibility of me being the way that I am as a random sequence of events that I occurred as the outcome of. It's crazy. And yes, I do believe that people who draw near in that presence and take that invitation, there's a favor there, because like it's just, I think that devotion and that longing to be in presence and to behold the beauty of God, of Spirit. I think there's a very personal aspect of God and of Spirit, and I think they appreciate being beheld by the eyes of delight and of awe and wonder. And that's what the relationship reciprocates constantly. So it's like this beautiful cycle of just kind of looking into each other. The divine. It's so beautiful.